Dr. Alex Carter paced back and forth in his cramped lab, staring at the glowing screen of his intergalactic assistant requisition form. He muttered to himself, clicking options without much thought. Physical labor and companion model? Sounds like it covers all the bases. Finally, someone, or something, that can handle the heavy lifting. He smirked, imagining a sleek robotic assistant sorting through the chaos of his workspace. When the confirmation beeped, Alex leaned back with satisfaction. About time I got some real help. No more lugging equipment around or wasting hours on menial tasks. Maybe now I'll actually meet deadlines. The arrival was scheduled for the next morning. Alex slept soundly, blissfully unaware of what was about to step into his life. The following day, a deep hum vibrated through the air as the transport pod descended onto the platform outside his lab. Alex jogged over, adjusting his glasses, expecting a modest, unassuming android. Instead, the pod doors hissed open to reveal her. She stepped out gracefully, though the pod groaned in relief as it released her massive frame. Standing a full 8 feet tall, Zara's presence was nothing short of overwhelming. Her silvery blue skin shimmered faintly under the sun, and her towering figure seemed to absorb all the space around her. Her eyes glowed faintly, locked onto Alex, who stood frozen with his mouth slightly agape. "You are Dr. Alex Carter," her voice boomed, both commanding and oddly melodic.
Yeah.
That's me," Alex stammered, craning his neck to meet her gaze. "I am Zara, your assigned assistant," she said, stepping closer. Her shadow engulfed him entirely. Alex blinked rapidly, his brain struggling to process the sight. "Right, assistant. Of course. This is fine. Totally fine." He cleared his throat. "So, you're here to assist?" "Yes," Zara said, nodding solemnly. "I am here to satisfy your every need." Alex choked on his own spit. "Excuse me?" Zara tilted her head, confused. "Your requisition stated you required assistance with labor and companionship. I have been thoroughly trained to handle both." "Well, I meant more in the professional sense," Alex said quickly, waving his hands. "You know, lab work, research, that sort of thing." Zara's eyes scanned the lab behind him. "Understood. Shall I begin handling your equipment?" Alex winced. "Let's maybe start with a tour?" Zara followed him inside, ducking under the doorway with practiced ease. The lab, already cluttered, seemed even smaller with her in it. She stood awkwardly, her broad shoulders nearly brushing the walls. "This is where the magic happens," Alex said, gesturing at the chaotic workspace. Zara's sharp gaze immediately focused on a pile of unorganized tools. "You work in such modest conditions," she remarked, her tone neutral but her expression betraying mild concern. "It's a work in progress," Alex muttered defensively. "Anyway, let's start small. Can you organize these instruments by size?" "Of course." Zara stepped forward, crouching down. The ground creaked ominously beneath her. With surprising delicacy, she picked up a microscope, only for it to shatter in her hands. Alex flinched. "Okay, maybe something sturdier." "My apologies," Zara said, her voice earnest. "Human instruments are smaller and more fragile than I anticipated." "It's not about size," Alex said, wincing as soon as the words left his mouth, "it's about how you use it." Zara raised an eyebrow. "An interesting philosophy." By the end of the first hour, the lab looked more like a disaster zone than before. Zara's attempts at helping included lifting a filing cabinet, through sheer force, only to leave it teetering dangerously, and rearranging equipment so efficiently that Alex couldn't find anything. Despite the chaos, Alex found himself strangely impressed by her enthusiasm. Zara approached every task with a mix of confidence and curiosity, even if her methods left much to be desired. When she attempted to brew coffee for Alex, things took another turn. She examined the coffee machine, her glowing eyes narrowing. "This is inefficient," she declared. Moments later, she used a plasma field from her palm to heat the water instantly, melting half the machine in the process. Alex stared at the smoldering wreckage. I see we're going to need to define some boundaries. Boundaries? Zara asked, genuinely puzzled. Yes. Like, no melting my stuff, for starters. Zara straightened, her imposing height making the conversation feel less like a reprimand and more like a negotiation. I will adapt. Your satisfaction is my priority. Alex sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. Yeah, about that. Let's stick to the tasks I give you, okay? As you wish, Zara said, bowing her head slightly. By the end of the day, Alex was exhausted, but a small part of him couldn't help but admire Zara's determination. Sure, she'd broken half his equipment and turned coffee-making into a safety hazard, but she was trying. As he slumped into his chair, Zara approached him, her massive frame casting a long shadow. Dr. Carter, she began, her tone softer than before, have I fulfilled your needs today? Alex looked up at her, hesitating before responding. You're definitely something, Zara. Let's call it a work in progress. Zara smiled faintly, a surprisingly warm expression that softened her intimidating features. I will do better tomorrow. Alex chuckled despite himself. Let's just survive the week first. The morning began with Zara standing in the kitchen, holding a human-sized spatula like it was a delicate twig. Alex rubbed his temples as he watched her, the remnants of her first attempt at breakfast, charcoal pancakes and an exploded carton of eggs, strewn across the counter. She turned to him with an apologetic look, holding a bowl filled with an unidentifiable green. Go. I followed your instructions precisely, Zara said, frowning at the mess. That's one interpretation, Alex muttered, taking a cautious step back. Let's maybe take a break from culinary experiments. Zara nodded solemnly. Understood. Shall I resume my other duties? Sure, Alex said, grabbing a mug of coffee. Just don't. A sudden crash interrupted him. Zara, in an attempt to clean up the kitchen, had grabbed the countertop to steady herself and ripped it clean off the wall. She held it up sheepishly. 'Cause more damage, Alex finished with a sigh. As the day progressed, Zara's attempts to assist grew increasingly absurd. While organizing his storage closet, she discovered duct tape and, after a brief moment of alien curiosity, attempted to repair everything she deemed broken, including Alex's swivel chair, which now had a duct-taped leg that didn't quite touch the ground. Alex sat cautiously, wobbling slightly as he tried to type. Zara, not everything needs fixing. Sometimes things are just quirky. I see, she said, tilting her head. So humans prefer their belongings slightly defective? It's called character, Alex replied, though he wasn't sure she understood. Zara's fascination with Earth customs extended beyond objects. She watched Alex make coffee again, her glowing eyes narrowing in focus. This beverage, she said, pointing at his mug, is vital to human productivity? Pretty much, Alex replied. She nodded and picked up the coffee pot. I shall enhance its potency. Wait, Alex started, but Zara was already using a strange alien gadget to amplify the caffeine content. The resulting brew emitted faint wisps of smoke and a smell Alex could only describe as of pure terror. When she offered him a mug, he hesitated. I'm not sure this is safe. Nonsense, Zara said with a rare smile. Your energy levels will skyrocket. Reluctantly, Alex took a sip. His eyes widened, his heart raced, and he immediately regretted every life choice leading to this moment. This is liquid chaos, he gasped. Zara beamed, clearly taking it as a compliment. Later, Alex decided to test her practical skills in the lab. He handed her a simple data tablet. Okay, Zara, let's focus on something straightforward. Just sort these files by date. Zara took the tablet with a serious nod. Moments later, the screen flickered, and the files were not only sorted but also encrypted in an alien script Alex couldn't read. Zara, he exclaimed, grabbing the tablet. I improved your security, she said proudly. I can't even access my own files now. It is an effective deterrent against theft, she reasoned. Alex groaned, setting the tablet aside. Let's try something you can't accidentally over-engineer. Zara paused, considering his words. Would you prefer I lift something heavy? Alex hesitated, recalling the last time she'd helped by carrying a crate of lab supplies through a wall instead of the door. Maybe later. The real challenge came when Zara decided to explore human emotions. She found one of Alex's old rom-com DVDs and, after some confusion about the concept of his discs, played it on his ancient player. This is how humans bond, she asked, watching two characters awkwardly confess their love. Sort of, Alex said, unsure where this was going. Zara nodded thoughtfully. I shall replicate this. What does that mean? Alex asked, but she was already turning toward him with an intense expression. Dr. Carter, Zara began, her tone formal, I admire your intelligence, your resilience, and your tolerance of my shortcomings. Alex blinked, caught completely off guard. Thanks? It is customary to declare these feelings openly, correct? She asked, her towering frame leaning slightly closer. Not like that, Alex stammered, holding up his hands. That's just a movie thing. Fascinating, Zara mused, sitting back. Human courtship rituals are peculiar. You have no idea, Alex muttered under his breath. By the end of the day, Alex was exhausted again, but he couldn't deny that Zara's enthusiasm, however misplaced, was endearing. She tried, in her own way, to adapt to his world, even if her methods left chaos in their wake. As he sat on the couch, Zara approached, holding a slightly bent lamp she'd repaired earlier. Dr. Carter, have I improved since this morning? Alex looked at her, noting the hopeful glint in her glowing eyes. Despite the destruction and the caffeine-induced heart palpitations, she had done her best. Yeah, he said with a small smile. You're getting there. Zara straightened proudly, nearly hitting the ceiling with her head. I will continue to strive for excellence. Alex chuckled, leaning back. Just try not to break anything else while you're at it. Alex was deep in his work, reviewing calculations for a new experiment, when Zara appeared behind him, her towering shadow cutting off the light. He turned, startled, nearly spilling his coffee. Dr. Carter, Zara said, her tone serious, I have been analyzing human interactions and found a troubling anomaly. Alex set down his mug carefully. What kind of anomaly? She produced a tablet displaying a bureaucratic notice stamped with the words, Compliance Inspection Pending. They are sending an inspector, Zara said, her glowing eyes narrowing. Your lab must meet intergalactic standards. Alex groaned, rubbing his temples. Of course they are. As if I don't have enough to deal with already. I will ensure your success, Zara said firmly. Thanks, but maybe let me handle this one, Alex said quickly, already envisioning the chaos Zara might unleash if left to her own devices. The inspector arrived an hour later, stepping into the lab with a clipboard and a disapproving expression. She was a rigid, no-nonsense woman with sharp eyes that immediately began cataloging every imperfection. Zara loomed in the background, her presence impossible to ignore. Dr. Carter, the inspector began, not bothering with pleasantries, I'm here to assess your facility and operations. I trust everything is in order? Alex forced a smile. Absolutely. Just a few minor quirks here and there. Zara took a step forward, her massive frame casting the inspector in shadow. Dr. Carter has been operating under suboptimal conditions. I am here to assist. The inspector arched an eyebrow, unimpressed. And you are? Zara, his assistant, she replied, straightening to her full height. I ensure efficiency in all tasks. Is that so? The inspector scribbled something on her clipboard. I'll be the judge of that. As the inspection began, Zara's attempts to help quickly veered into disaster territory. When the inspector examined the lab's containment protocols, Zara enthusiastically demonstrated how she could manually secure the equipment. Unfortunately, her demonstration involved accidentally triggering an alarm, which led to flashing lights and a voice declaring, "Evacuation protocol initiated." Alex scrambled to shut it off while the inspector crossed her arms. Interesting interpretation of "secure," she said dryly. I assure you, Alex said, panting, this isn't a regular occurrence. The next test was equipment calibration. The inspector approached a delicate spectrometer, only for Zara to step in, insisting she could optimize its functionality. Before Alex could stop her, Zara's alien strength twisted a dial too far, causing the machine to emit a loud pop and a puff of smoke. "Oops," Zara said, holding the broken piece sheepishly. The inspector raised an eyebrow but said nothing, her pen moving furiously across the clipboard. When it came time to review documentation, Zara once again inserted herself, claiming to have secured the files. Alex's heart sank as she presented the tablet encrypted in the alien language. "What is this?" the inspector asked, frowning at the incomprehensible symbols. "A security measure," Zara said proudly. The inspector looked unimpressed. "And how do you access the files?" Alex coughed awkwardly. "We're working on that." The inspector's glare could have melted steel. Despite the disasters, Zara remained undeterred. She followed the inspector closely, her sheer size and enthusiasm clearly making the woman uncomfortable. When the inspector examined the environmental controls, Zara leaned in and said with a grin, "Dr. Carter takes great pride in his equipment. Would you like a demonstration?" The inspector flushed, taking a step back. "No, that won't be necessary." As the inspection drew to a close, the atmosphere was tense. Alex felt like he'd aged a decade in the past hour. The inspector stood at the center of the lab, her clipboard filled with notes, her expression unreadable. "Well, Dr. Carter," she began, "this has been enlightening." Alex braced himself for the inevitable failure report. "Your lab is unconventional, to say the least," the inspector continued. "But," she glanced at Zara, who stood proudly beside Alex. "Your assistant's unconventional methods did reveal one thing: your experimental design has potential, provided you refine your processes." Alex blinked in surprise. "So? I passed?" "Barely," the inspector said, her tone clipped. "I expect significant improvements before the next review." As she turned to leave, Zara stepped forward and offered her a firm handshake. The inspector winced as her hand was nearly crushed but managed to maintain her composure. "Thank you for your insights," Zara said sincerely. The inspector gave a curt nod and left, muttering something under her breath about unnecessary theatrics. When the door closed, Alex slumped against the wall, exhaling in relief. That could have gone worse. "I believe I performed adequately," Zara said, looking pleased. Alex laughed despite himself. "You nearly gave her a heart attack, but sure, let's call it adequate." Zara tilted her head. "Your humor is often contradictory, Dr. Carter." "Welcome to human interaction," Alex said, shaking his head. "Now, let's focus on fixing everything you broke during that adequate performance." "As you wish," Zara replied with a smile, already reaching for the duct tape. The days after the inspection settled into a strange rhythm. Alex had learned to expect the unexpected when it came to Zara's methods, but he still couldn't entirely shake the sense of impending disaster. Today was no exception. Zara had decided to help him with a new project, one that involved delicate biosampling equipment that was crucial for his research. "I will assist you with the samples, Dr. Carter," Zara said eagerly, looking down at the array of fragile glass tubes and vials on the lab counter. Alex hesitated. "Okay, but I need precision." "This is important work, Zara. No room for mistakes." "I will be precise," Zara assured him, crouching down to examine the setup. Her long, silver fingers twitched as if eager to help, but there was a hint of uncertainty in her posture. As Alex turned to grab the analysis notes, he heard a faint crack. He spun around just in time to see Zara, in her eagerness, accidentally crush an entire row of glass vials with a single swipe of her hand. The sound of breaking glass was almost comical in its intensity. "Zara!" Alex shouted, his hands flying up in panic. "I did not mean to," Zara started, but it was too late. There were shards of glass everywhere, and a few vials still hissed with the remnants of their contents. "Careful!" Alex warned, rushing forward to help clean up. "That was toxic. You can't just..." "Do not worry, Dr. Carter," Zara said, scooping up the shards with unthinking ease. I will handle it. She didn't seem to comprehend the magnitude of the situation, casually tossing the broken glass into a trash bin like it was just another mundane task. Alex groaned, rubbing his temples. I told you, Zara, precision. I understand, she said, though her eyes still seemed somewhat confused. I will improve. The rest of the day wasn't much better. Zara was determined to help with the research, but her methods, while undoubtedly effective in a raw, brute force sense, left Alex questioning his own sanity. When she tried to organize the samples in his cold storage, she accidentally triggered the cooling system to overload. The hum of the machinery turned into a loud, mechanical whine before it went silent, leaving the entire lab in a cold, eerie silence. Alex cursed under his breath, running to the control panel. Zara, why didn't you? I thought the temperature was too high for efficiency, she interrupted, her eyes wide. I have fixed it. You unfixed it, Alex shot back, trying to reset the system. Now everything could be ruined. Zara's expression softened with what could only be described as embarrassment. I will make it right. She moved toward the cold storage, her massive hands trembling slightly as she tried to manipulate the settings. The power surged again, and a spark ignited in the wires. Alex dove to shut it off, his heart pounding in his chest. I am not familiar with your human systems, Zara admitted. Really? Alex snapped, his patience wearing thin. I'd never have guessed. As the cold storage system powered down with a final groan, Zara stood motionless. I will study the systems more thoroughly. I will not fail you again, Dr. Carter. Alex exhaled sharply, slumping into his chair. That's the problem with having someone like you help. You're trying too hard, but you don't know the basics. I will learn, Zara said resolutely. That evening, Alex found Zara poring over every instruction manual she could find, her massive form hunched over the small human-sized desk in the corner of the lab. She looked like a misplaced giant trying to navigate a tiny world, and yet, there was a strange determination in her posture. He walked over and cleared his throat. Zara, listen. You don't have to do all this. Maybe we should just stick to what we know for now, okay? She looked up at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of understanding and resolve. I am sorry for my mistakes, Dr. Carter. I do not wish to disappoint you. He sighed, the weight of the day's frustrations settling on his shoulders. You haven't disappointed me, Zara. You're just a little overwhelming sometimes. Zara blinked. Overwhelming?
Yeah,
Alex said, rubbing his face. You're just so big. You don't realize how much space you take up. It's not easy working with you when you keep breaking everything. Zara looked down at her hands, her fingers twitching nervously. I am too large? Alex winced, realizing how that sounded. No, it's not that. You're perfect, it's just, well, your size does matter sometimes. I'm not used to having an assistant who could literally crush the lab if she sneezed. Zara's eyes widened slightly. My size has become a hindrance? Not exactly a hindrance, Alex said, feeling guilty. Just more of a complication than I anticipated. I didn't think through the details when I requested your help. Zara's expression softened. I see. I will make sure my presence no longer interferes. Alex gave her a tight smile. It's not that simple. I just need to figure out how we can make this work. She nodded, standing up to her full height. If you desire, I can leave. I will seek another place where my size is more suited. No. Alex blurted out, almost too quickly. I mean, no. That's not necessary. Zara seemed to hesitate, then approached Alex with surprising gentleness, kneeling down to his level. I wish to be useful, Dr. Carter. I want to help you. Alex looked up at her, his frustration ebbing away. He could see it in her, despite all the chaos, despite the mess, Zara genuinely wanted to be of assistance. It was hard not to appreciate that kind of commitment. He sighed again, rubbing the back of his neck. Okay, look. Let's try this. How about I start giving you more specific tasks? No more guessing. I'll tell you exactly what I need, and you just focus on that. Zara's face lit up with a relieved smile. That is acceptable. Good, Alex said, nodding. Let's try a small task first. How about you organize the storage by color, not size? Zara raised an eyebrow. By color?
Yeah.
It's a thing we do here on Earth, Alex said, standing up. Humans like things neat and organized, but not by the strength of the materials. Just how they look. Understood, Zara said with a slight tilt of her head. I will learn this new system of organization. Alex smiled for the first time that day. All right, let's see how you do. As Zara got to work, her hands now moving more carefully and intentionally, Alex sat back and realized, maybe, just maybe, there was hope for this strange partnership after all.